Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David.
And I'm Blake.
And we're here to recap 2023. So Happy New Year!
Happy New Year. Another year.
That's right, another year down. This has definitely been a very challenging year. Definitely didn't get as much content out as we wanted, but we're going to discuss all that. But first, let's get into the great things that we did get to accomplish this last year. I guess it makes sense. You want to start with maybe our favorites?
Yeah, we do 3 to 1 like we always do and start from there.
Sounds good. I'll let you take the first one.
I would say number 3 for me would be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre filming locations. Kind of like not the most exciting things ever, but being like a horror buff, just seeing some of those things, even if they're not in their full, you know, how they were when they were first being filmed.
I mean, it's so long ago.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they're still standing, I think, is impressive.
Yeah, and then, you know, with one of them being the restaurant that was the house that got moved hours out of the way, it was still cool seeing it in its kind of shell, and then they kind of beefed it up with a little bit of horror flavor and theming.
Now, they said they're going to do even more, right?
That's what they upstairs is just kind of like vacant, and they're kind of going to build a museum, but as of now, it's just kind of an empty upstairs, which isn't the worst thing ever.
I mean, who knows? Maybe that's going to be worth going to check out again if they, add a lot more stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I know you said it moved, but better that than it being maybe demolished or something that maybe would have happened to it at its original spot.
That's what happens a lot with filming locations. That, and a lot of times, which it makes sense with it, but serial killer houses and locations that stuff happen, they usually tear them down because it gets a lot of bad publicity, like the John Wayne Gacy house or the apartments that I can't think of his name now.
Ed Gein?
No. Well, that farmhouse burned down.
Yeah, that's gone.
The cannibal.
Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes,
yeah. They tore all that down. So it's very rare to see any of those locations stay.
Yeah, like horror movies, true crime, a lot of that, because it kind of brings that dark tourism in that
so
you try to shy away from.
You don't see a lot of that stay around that long. That's why it's kind of impressive that they disassembled it and brought it back hours out of there. And it's a big house.
Yeah, not only that, but I think a lot of old movies, they didn't think of it back then as people wanting to see this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of it usually got recycled, right?
Yeah,
like a lot of props and things from older movies. So.
I mean, they used to, until like the, I think 70s or even the 60s, they were reusing film. So a lot of, before reruns, things were just being filmed over. So there's a lot of lost episodes. Even like Doctor Who.
There's some lost episodes there.
Because they didn't think about that kind of stuff back then.
Because they didn't think we'd want to watch it. They're like, okay, let's keep going, keep these resources.
Yeah. So you see it more often now, but a lot of those classic movies from 50 plus years ago, it's kind of harder to see some of the bigger filming props stay alive. So it's at least something. Definitely a movie like that where it's not the best movie ever, and it might not be everyone's favorite when it comes to the horror genre, but it's
definitely a genre touchstone, though. I mean, it's a cornerstone of what's been built, for sure.
Oh, yeah. It was a slasher before slashers were as popular.
Exactly.
Even if it wasn't as much of a slasher with a knife. But
right. It was unique for the time. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the fact that we're still talking about it now, people still watch it.
And it's been rebooted so many times that...
Maybe it shouldn't have, but...
Yeah. But obviously it must be good enough if it's been rebooted that many times.
I agree. And I mean, Leatherface is iconic. People still put him up there with, I think, some of the great horrors. So it makes sense. Okay, let's see. You talk about movies. I think one of my favorite things, which was also movie related, would have to be the Science of Pixar exhibit.
That was a good one.
That we went to. That was really cool.
Yeah.
It may just be that we did so much Disney this past year, and we're still working on that Disney 100. It just really felt like in line with all that. I love Pixar movies.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you agree. That's some of the best Disney animated in general that's out there right now.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. The way that they blended it to where it kind of showed you behind the scenes without going overboard. Because, sometimes when you add too much of that, it just becomes uninteresting. But I think they did a really good job of kind of towing that line between educational and still very entertaining and honoring the movies that it was presenting.
Yeah. I wish they would have done some of the older Pixar ones. Like, you didn't see a lot of Bugs Life love. Which never really happens, and even the parks, they don't really have.
And Bugs Life was so good.
Yeah. And it's a product of its time, but I think it's better than some of the newer Pixar movies.
Oh, yeah. unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I noticed they also didn't go into too many of the like newer.
Yeah.
It kind of seemed like Coco was the most recent.
Luca.
Oh, Luca was there a little bit. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yes.
They didn't go deep, but yeah.
Yeah, they did a little nod to stuff.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was kind of the heavy hitters with, the Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Cars, even WALL-E.
Yeah.
WALL-E had a little bit, and Brave. I was a little surprised there was so much on Brave.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I guess I didn't think of that as really one of the big ones, but she is a Disney princess.
And it was a good price, I would say.
Oh, very affordable.
I mean, it was a part of a museum, like an exhibit in the museum, but sometimes it was like pop-up art installation stuff for like big themes.
And it was Disney. They could put whatever they want on it.
Exactly. The prices, I mean, you'll have things where it's like a licensed pop-up shop, and it'll be like $60 to enter, and it's just like,
we've run into those.
big, it's almost like a tourist trap, but that was one of those ones where it was affordable for the price, and you got a lot out of it.
There was. I actually almost expected it to be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
I think originally it was even going to be just like a little addition to the episode of the bigger museum. But once we got in there, we were like, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
There's enough here that this is definitely its own thing. So I enjoyed that. I thought that was great.
Yeah. And I'd say for my second location, speaking of Disney, when we visited the Epcot.
Oh, yes.
It was a very unique park for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's Disney, but it's very light Disney. You can definitely tell where they've put a little bit of their intellectual properties in on parts that used to be probably something else, but it still keeps it that education part on it. Like the Nemo part.
Right.
You can tell like it wasn't always probably about that. It was more about the waters.
It was about the actual ocean and everything.
And they even with the part where you go around the world, a lot of those locations, they got an IP that connects to that country. They didn't put that country there. Coco in Mexico. Obviously, Coco hadn't been around for more than, 6 years at most?
Yeah.
So before that, the Mexico exhibit was still there. So obviously...
I guess we just had the Donald Duck ride with the three caballeros.
Yeah.
And that was probably the only real IP.
And aren't they eventually going to probably change that to Coco?
I think it's going to happen.
And they got enough Coco stuff already kind of on the gift shop side, so...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then you got Frozen.
Frozen over in Norway, Ratatouille in Paris, where that's one of their newer rides, actually.
Yeah. And then they tie in like the Beauty and the Beast, and they got the Winnie the Pooh and Alice in Wonderland. Like they try to find anywhere to put a little bit of the fantasy with the reality of things.
But I like that it wasn't overwhelming. Mm-hmm. It was there, but it didn't take away from anything.
Yeah.
I think it also helps that we went during the Flower and Garden, where you got to see, all the big topiaries of the characters.
Yeah.
So that was another kind of that Disney magic sprinkled on it.
Yeah.
At least there, I loved the Guardians ride.
Oh yeah, that was fun. And they put it in the space area.
It makes sense.
They tie it everywhere it had something to do with it. It made sense where it was.
Right, and I like that they kind of made it an educational, kind of mock thing where you're learning about Xandar.
Yeah.
That was cool.
But it's like education to like a very lowbrow, where it's not like, oh, you just need to know everything about everything to enjoy this.
Anybody that walks in can still be like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
And not be like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Which is a problem some museums run into.
It was the education level of like the teacher rolls the TV out and you watch an educational video. Like, yeah, you're learning something, but it's a little bit more fun than just sitting there watching it on a chalkboard.
It's like getting to watch Bill Nye the Science Guy back in elementary school.
I can learn that way. It's a little bit more. It's like a day off.
Yeah.
Or a learning field trip. You got to learn something, but it's a field trip. You're not in class. You're on a bus going somewhere.
Exactly.
That's what that kind of gave me that, because you've been to Epcot plenty of times.
Of course.
It was my first time ever going, and I just, from the beginning, kind of enjoyed that.
See, it's very unique from all the theme parks, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that no matter the other ones you've been to, it's not just copying what you've seen in other states and places.
Yeah.
So they did a great job.
Different than any other Disney park.
Very much so. Even the ones right there at Disney World, it stands apart for sure.
Yep.
Okay, number 2, I think I'm going to have to go with our comp episode in Hollywood area.
Okay.
Specifically, I think what I like the most about I love seeing the Hollywood sign. It's so iconic. Even the chicken and waffles, it was delicious.
Yeah, Roscoe's.
That's right, getting to see that, original location. But out of everything we did there, I think my number 1 was when we got to go inside the Chinese theater.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
It is something that there's so much history there. So many movies. I think Wizard of Oz, they said, was there.
I believe so, yeah.
And then, I think the original Star Wars may have even been there. There's just so many major movies that have... Right there is where they came into the world.
Yeah.
And the fact that, they allowed us free reign to go in, to see the seats, the curtains, everything, I was blown away.
And the most famous part about that theater might be just right on the outside with all the handprints and the footprints.
Yes.
that's like your goal in life, is to be on that little section.
That's how you know you made it.
Yeah.
If you're right there, like,
you get to graffiti the ground.
You're there forever.
Yep.
There was so many greats there. I mean,
I think you'd rather be there than a star on the walkway, because I mean, there's way more stars than there is, you know, people that get to put their handprints.
I mean, I'm not going to say no to a Hollywood star, but
but it's almost a little bit more selected.
It definitely is. There wasn't as much room, and then everybody with the handprints is a heavy hitter.
Oh yeah,
it is like A-list, top of the list on all of them.
Or it's even the memorable ones, like they did for like the Avengers, stuff like that, for a very iconic movie.
That was super cool.
Where they kind of get to tie them all together.
Yeah, I really like that they kind of go out of their way to acknowledge like major pop culture things happening. So that I was speechless at some of them. It was just so cool, and getting to see these things that you've seen on TV and movies and heard about for so long, getting to be there in a physical location that actually made it real. It was fantastic. I would go back there in a heartbeat. I mean, hopefully we see a movie there sometime. Maybe even a premiere.
I mean, it's free to just walk around there. It's not like it's something you got to pay to get to the gate.
Right. They're not stopping people from going in. So if you're in the area, I'm sure you already were going to, but you got to go by. Take some time to see it.
And I'd say my number one location, I know it definitely impacted both of us, and me just being a horror fan, it almost was kind of like as close to living that like fantasy out of like being in a horror movie and being immersed into it, is when we went to the Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa. That was one of those locations where, I mean, you can go tour the place for like $10 to $20, but it's during the daytime and it's like guided tour, and it's still, you know, very
cool to see.
It's creepy during the daytime. You can feel the eeriness of it and all, and it'd be cool just to say you've been, because I mean it's still a couple hours outside of the major city of Iowa in Des Moines. So it's like you still got to make your way there. But I would just say to get the full effect, and the only way to get that is by renting the place out, and that's where you get it at night, and it's
just you.
Free, it's just free reign.
It is just whoever you have with you, and that's it. There's no tour guide. There's no like help. It's
they're
you
not
versus the house.
And the craziest thing about the place is there's no electricity, so it's pitch black in there. So the only way that you can see what you want to see, if you want to, is by turning on a flashlight. You can't turn on a light and be like, oh, I want the light on.
Oh, I'm getting a little scared. Let's turn it on. No.
So I mean, it was like a lot. There's a lot of times when we were filming in there where it wasn't like us using a flashlight. The only way we were seeing anything was with the camera, because we had night vision cameras.
That's right. We got the night vision cameras for it, and
so even though on the camera it looks like it's bright in the room,
we saw nothing.
It was one of those like almost pure darkness where you can put your hand in front of your face and not see nothing in front of it.
Yeah, we had the glow of the camera, and that was about it. If that was gone,
I mean, it was a very dim lit day or night. Because the moon wasn't really shining bright.
It was cloudy. It was,
I mean, dead silence really outside. I mean, because people live in that neighborhood. But
surprisingly.
But I mean, and I think there was even some apartments across the street, so it wasn't like just all single family homes. And there still was not a lot of people out at night.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of street lights. There I mean, it was dark. I definitely want to talk more about that specifically, because there was a lot I think went into that. That was the first time for both of us. But I absolutely agree. That was that left a mark on me more than probably anything else this year. That was like very unique.
And it was an experience that most people can never say in their life they got to do.
And a lot of people probably wouldn't want to.
No, they wouldn't want to, but it's also one of those, it's different than going and paying to go to like a scare house, like a haunted house. Where it's, you know, $50. I mean, it's cool. I like those kind of places too, because I like the costumes, the set pieces.
You still kind of that adrenaline too for the jump scares.
It's just unique. But I think for the major part, it's just more reality in it.
Yeah, it was a thrill in a very different way. And I don't think you could really get it in many other ways. Like, it's kind of this. So, 100%, we're going to talk more about that. But I guess my number one, and this is going totally opposite of yours.
Depends. Some people, this might be the scariest place on Earth.
That's true. Some people might think that. I think my number one has to be finally getting to Disneyland. For those who don't know, I actually used to work at Disney World. All my life, I've grown up a big Disney fan, so I'd never made it to the original location where everything kind of started, where the first park happened, and getting to walk the streets that Walt Disney himself designed and walked and worked at. So getting to be there and finally take it all in and see it, that's definitely my number one.
You got to see the originals of rides that translated over to Disney World.
Exactly. Like, I love the ones at Disney World, but now it was like you said, the originals Pirates of the Caribbean,
Yeah.
The Haunted Mansion,
Yeah.
It's a Small World. Same the things.
We got to see Splash Mountain. I mean, you've already been to Splash Mountain, but you got to see the final kind of run because it closed down like a couple months.
That's right. Rest in peace, Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
We were some of the last people to ride it. And how many times did we ride it that day? 3 or 4 times?
Oh yeah, it was a very cold day, so it was soaking wet and freezing.
And they meant it when they said splash. If you've ridden it, you know exactly what I mean. You can get very wet on it.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought it was absolutely awesome. There's so many little things. I understand why people fall in love with it so much.
Yeah.
Now you've been to Disneyland and Disney World. You can there's a lot of differences.
Yeah.
It feels very different, doesn't it? So even though a lot of things are similar, it's definitely a different enough park that it's 2 totally new things. Yeah. At least in my opinion. I think Magic Kingdom at Disney World is very different from Disneyland, their main park.
I mean, you can tell that they were planned at different times and eras of theme parks.
Yeah.
One was like, when he first did it, it was like, oh, you're crazy. Why are you doing this? This is going to fail. And the other one was, well, this has succeeded, so now let's do something more planned.
Yeah, it was like, let's take the lessons we learned with the first one and improve upon it.
Because Anaheim's a very more populated area. I mean, it's on the outskirts of LA in the sense that you still got to drive out of your way to get there from LA, but it's a more heavy, concentrated area of people, and land's a lot more expensive to get. So you can see where there's not much more room for expansion. They're lucky they even have another park there besides the original.
Like if they wanted another one there now, I don't know how they would do it.
They wouldn't.
It's going to have to be somewhere else that you kind of connect and get over to.
I mean, even in Orlando, they're building a 5th park.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they couldn't do that even if they wanted to in California. The 2nd park was already stretching it.
Yeah, but I think that was one of the biggest lessons they took was let's get a lot of land while we can out in Florida. But no, Disneyland, you definitely feel the magic there. I was not disappointed. I felt like after most of my life going to Disney World and growing up there that I would be like, Disneyland. Yeah. It was just as magical as I hoped it would be. It was great. It
was a historical piece. Because it was like a museum piece in the sense that if you've been to the other one, then you can tell that this is different, but it's older and more preserved.
And no matter which one is your favorite, I feel like you've always got to respect the first one.
Oh yeah.
Where it came from. Because without that, we wouldn't have had Disney World.
Oh no.
So
Disneyland fails. There is no Disney World. There's no Tokyo Disney, no Shanghai, there's no Paris.
It's all just done.
And there's probably a lot of theme parks out there right now that don't exist because of it. Because they're not like, let's open a theme park that is for this IP. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
You can't do it the same way they used to be able to. Yeah. It was definitely established in a very unique time, and I think in a way a lot of every theme park after that I think took something from Disneyland. Yep. I think the way that they did it and the innovations they came up with became standards across the entire, the whole community, even today. Yeah. I think they're still influencing everything that happens. But that is our top ones for now. Let's do a quick recap. We'll do some clips of some of our favorites, some of the ones we didn't mention, and enjoy. So, maybe not a ton this year, but still some pretty good stuff. Very interesting places.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to cover next?
I guess we can do best free things we did this year.
That is always a good one. I think we can both... we did have more of a limited field, but I think we can at least pick like our top free thing.
Yeah.
Go from there.
Yeah. What do you think would be yours?
Oh, man. There's a lot of good choices. There's quite a few, very budget and free type things, but I think ultimately I'm going to have to stick with, much like my love of Hollywood when we went to the LA area, I think the last bookstore is probably what sticks out to me.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't want it to be free. When you go, they want you to get a book, of course. So definitely, support bookstores. But everything they had set up there, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a regular bookstore, but we ended up spending, at least 2 or 3 hours there, I think. I mean, there was so much to see. And that was even without, like, shopping for actual books. Yeah. I'm sure if we would have taken time to look through books and actually find stuff we were interested in. It was like a treasure hunt in there. In that whole labyrinth area and everything. Yeah. It was very unique, very interesting. I almost feel like bookstores have to do something like that these days. I know that, some of the smaller chains have all shut down. They've only got a few. Even Barnes & Nobles has lost some of their, bigger places. Yeah. And, of course, books are something that I strongly think definitely important. We need to keep them going. So I like that they're trying to bring people into the store.
I've always been a bigger used bookstore over new, because the new bookstores, they almost feel more just fake and just there. You can't really find a unique treasure at a new bookstore. Cause
that's true.
The inventory is limited to what is out now. And there's not a lot of times where things are just going to be out of print, because by then they're already on clearance and they're gone. Yeah. While a used bookstore, you could find anything. It's whatever's been traded in.
It's literally any book ever,
That's always the best time to find something. You'll see stuff that you never knew existed, and it's been out of print for 50 years. And it's just
what you were looking for. It becomes your favorite new book. Yeah.
There's so many books every year that they don't get republished and new editions and stuff like that. So that alone just makes them way better to me than the new bookstores.
And I think that's why we both agree, Half Price Books, one of our favorite places.
Yeah, it's more of a local thing. It kind of goes into other states, but it's definitely from the Dallas-Fort Worth area originally. Right. But it's got so many locations, and it gives you that opportunity to kind of find things that you normally wouldn't see at a Barnes & Noble or Borders when it was around.
Exactly. There's not as much of that, I guess, because I think they make, the publishing industry makes deals with different places that, hey, take our books or whatever. Yeah. And like you're saying, with, used bookstores, anything can come through the door. Yeah. And I think we saw some of those at the last bookstore. Definitely up in that labyrinth, there was a lot of just completely random books that... You were like, okay.
You can get gems in the sense of they're going to be expensive, but it's you're not going to find them on anywhere but eBay. Right. Signed editions. I've seen books even at some of the local ones Half Price where it's Charles Darwin. Some of his older editions of Evolution. Yeah. Some of his older copies. People sell some stuff there that is definitely going to be worth something to somebody, and they'll pay that money.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen, it was a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird that was autographed in there, and I was like, why is this just in a store?
Yeah. And even though that doesn't seem like that old of a book, it's still 70 plus years old.
Exactly. It's a classic piece of literature. I'm sure whoever took that home very much is enjoying it. Yeah. But yeah, what would you say was your favorite kind of budget-free item?
So yeah, the one I picked, it was, again, I'm a big fan of sports and the history of sports, and surprisingly, this is one of those ones that you would think, even though it's connected to a school, sometimes just because a university owns a property, they like to sell tickets on it. Sure. We've seen that before on things where they still charge for admission to get into a certain thing that a university owns. But in Lawrence, Kansas, the University of Kansas had the basketball center for them that's connected to the actual Allen Fieldhouse where they play basketball to this day. And just seeing all the artifacts from the beginning of basketball, almost some of this stuff could easily, if they weren't owned by the school, be donated to the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts.
And they would gladly take it.
Oh, they gladly take it, especially their prized possession, which is the rules of basketball, because the founder of basketball was a head coach for the university at one point.
Now, was he their first head coach, I believe, right? Or was he...
I don't remember.
It was very early on, at least, though, right?
Yeah. So it's just one of those parts of history. That's one of the first big blue-blooded schools of basketball, and he is one of the, obviously, pioneers. He is the pioneer of basketball, because without him, Who
doesn't
knows
exist.
If the sport even exists to begin with.
I can't believe that those rules even still exist.
Yeah.
Like, you saw how much protection they had on the bullet-proof glass.
Yeah.
The lighting to be very, very dim.
Yeah.
Like,
you got to press the light to get it open.
Yeah.
Just to see, or not open, but to see
the light come down.
Yeah. And then, I mean, if you're into documentaries, there's a good one for a 30 for 30 that kind of shows about a guy who is a Kansas alumni who helps get that bought by the boosters at Kansas to get it to the school.
Okay, so they didn't originally have it.
No, they had to buy it.
Okay.
Yeah, they originally bought it from like a auction house that was selling it, and he had to convince all these big boosters for Kansas that it deserved to be in Kansas because...
I mean, I agree. That's where he coached. That's where he made a name for
But he had to do a lot of convincing because there was a lot of boosters that did not want to spend the money because I don't remember what the cost was, but it was not cheap.
Oh, geez. I'm sure it was astronomical.
Yeah, but it's a good documentary, and it kind of ties in the whole, museum alone with just those rules. Because without the rules, I mean, it's still a pretty good museum.
But it's not as much about basketball as a whole. It's more about just Kansas then.
Well, I mean,
so
but
I feel like
Kansas,
bringing that in, though, makes it about everything.
Yeah, but without Kansas basketball, I mean, it's not the same either.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's safe to say we are not Kansas fans, either of us. We're not. I mean, we're not against them, but we're not. That's not our teams.
Yeah.
But being there and getting to see it, I felt a little bit of pride in the school.
Yeah.
Just seeing all their trophies, kind of the adversity they've gone through, and where they've gotten to now. Yeah. I thought it was really cool.
We've even seen a live game there, and it's a very...
We did. Electric.
Yeah, very electric for a very old arena compared to some. I mean, you can walk from the court all the way up to the top row, and you don't have to go through different levels. You don't have to go take some stairs to get up there. You can just walk all the way down, basically.
It almost felt like a high school gymnasium, the way that it's set up. And it just, you're right there. You feel like you're in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
And those fans, they come to cheer.
Yeah.
They support their team through thick and thin. I got to give props to the Kansas squad there. They got it. Mm-hmm. But I loved that. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
It actually surprised me how much I enjoyed that. And speaking of that, as a good segue into what surprised you the most of any of the places we went to, that you kind of went in with lower expectations and it just blew them out of the water. Did you have anything like that?
Mine would definitely be in Ohio. It was on the western side of Ohio. That's a little bit less populated, because Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, those are like the big populated areas. I mean, Ohio as a state already has less people than like the DFW area, or not less, but almost the same amount as just our metroplex.
And that's the whole state.
Yeah, that's the whole state, and they're all more in those three cities than anything. But you get more on the western side of Ohio, closer to I believe Indiana's
It's almost that state border, right?
You get to where it's not even the full museum is not just for this, but there's the Annie Oakley Center, which is I think it's the Garst Museum.
The Garst Museum,
yeah. The Garst Museum. And the Annie Oakley Center, because she is actually buried in the town, too. And it just highlights her whole life. It has artifacts from her time, going out on the road and doing all those shooting spectacles. And it was a really cool museum.
All the way from basically when she's a child up to when she passed.
Yeah. It was really cool, because I didn't know much about Annie Oakley. But a lot of the artifacts and just the storyline that they did on the museum just made it a very enjoyable experience.
I would agree with you. I liked that way more than I thought I would. Mm-hmm. She's always been one of those names that you just kind of hear. I feel like it's like, oh yeah, Annie Oakley, like a girl good with a gun. Yeah. That's all you really know.
Yeah.
But here you actually got to see the whole story of her.
Yeah.
I think before this, all I really knew about her was when we went to the Cowboy Hall of Fame Museum and we saw like her guns on display. Yeah. And that was about it. I was like, okay, she was really good at shooting.
Yeah.
But there was so much more to her.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, and even though it wasn't the whole museum, it could have been.
Yeah,
I felt like it was good enough that my admission for just that, I was satisfied.
It's kind of like when we went, and that's again an Ohio thing, but when we went to that popcorn museum, it was at like a county museum, and that was the best thing in that museum. You can tell that was the thing that kind of drove people in from like out of town, but it was unique, and it was kind of surprising that something in like a county museum you'd think was.
I mean, when I hear county museum, I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah. I mean, how good could that be? Yeah. But stop in them sometimes. Yeah. There's some awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we found those mummies. We found mummies in one.
That's right, over in the Philippine mummies in West Virginia.
Yeah, stuff like that you never know. It's not always going to be like a major spectacle like going to a Smithsonian.
Yeah, sometimes you got those hidden gems that are just on that tucked away little place. They're like, how did they get this?
Yep.
There it is.
Yeah. Someone's got to own it. They can't all be owned by the same people.
There you go.
Yeah.
I would have to say my biggest surprise like that, is the Potter's Wax Museum that is over in St. Augustine.
Yes.
I love St. Augustine. I love the history there. We've still got a couple episodes coming up very soon that take place over there. But that in particular, I've been to St. Augustine several times.
Yeah.
I've never been to that museum.
Yeah.
I'm not a wax museum kind of person. I kind of think that, I was like, they're kind of cheesy. It's not really my thing.
Especially when you hear American's Oldest, you might think, oh, these are going to be very low quality.
Exactly. Yeah. You're like, all right, so there's going to be some goofy, bad-looking mannequins, basically.
Yeah.
But then once I actually got in there, I was amazed.
Yeah.
They looked fantastic. They were very well taken care of. I mean, it may be the oldest, but you can tell that they still care about these.
Yeah.
I don't know if all of the dummies date back necessarily back to them.
No.
But
there has to be some in there that were, for sure.
Yeah, there's got to be some originals.
Yeah.
I love that at the beginning they're kind of showing you the differences in how they're made, the different types of wax, which I didn't know there was different kinds of wax.
No.
I guess it makes sense, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
Just how much artistry goes into them, though. Like, it is insane. So I actually really enjoyed going through there, getting to see all the different, I like that they grouped them into different kind of historical periods.
Yeah.
They had like all the presidents together, the founding fathers, the different wars that went on, the generals.
They had the scary theme. I mean,
with the monsters and the little bit of pirates and stuff.
Yeah.
I like the literature area with the famous authors. Like, I thought it was great. I would not have thought that would have been one of my top museums in Florida, but it ended up being. I mean, I get why it's the oldest, why it's still around.
Yeah.
They really care about what they do there, and in my opinion, they made it very worth it.
Yeah. You find out very quickly in places like that everything that you can think of as a topic or just anything like a hobby is someone's passion. Like, that's what they devote their whole life to. And obviously there's people out there that devote wax making into figures as their hobby and their passion, and that's what they do every day.
And you've gotta have passion to do it.
Oh, yeah.
As much as goes into that, if you don't care about what you're doing, I don't think you could make it look as good as they do.
Oh, no, definitely not.
So yeah, bravo to them.
So I feel like the next category we should definitely talk about is what was our most challenging episode to film.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I think I know mine. Do you know yours?
I have a feeling we probably have the same one in mind.
Do you want to just say it at the same time? And if we don't, I guess we have two things to talk about.
Sure.
All right. One, two, three.
Velisca.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that, but I didn't expect you to say it earlier.
Oh, I thought you said 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. Then you hesitated, so I was like, maybe he wanted to count down even
more.
More dramatic.
What was that? Yours?
Yes. Velisca was mine too.
Definitely challenging. That is a great word for it because it wasn't bad.
Oh, it was a great experience. I mean, I had it as number 1.
Yeah. Just very, very challenging. Let's start at the beginning. What would you say was one of the first kind of challenges we ran into with this?
Well, I'd say the first part of the challenge was the end of our trip. So we'd already been on the road for about 3-4 days, going all the way from Texas, driving all the way through Iowa.
Which is, about a 12-hour trip?
Yeah, just to get into there, because we started kind of in the Des Moines area.
Right.
So, and then we spent 3 to 4 days from morning to night just filming and going all around we went around the whole state of Iowa. We might not have done everything in Iowa, but we definitely went from, down at the bottom all the way to
the corner up to the north.
Yeah, we went to the east, to the north, and back around, all the way to the other corner, all the way to the most western part, and kind of hugged that Nebraska border. And I mean, so by the end,
we actually went into Nebraska once, kind of looped in, right? Yeah.
So it was just one of those already starting out. We didn't go there till the end. It might not have been as bad at the beginning.
And that was because, of course, we did this close to Halloween. It was a Halloween special, and they are booked solid.
Yep. Weekends,
weekdays.
All the time.
It is honestly, it was a miracle that we were able to get in there when we did, and we still booked about a month in advance.
Yeah, and it was on a Monday, so it's just I guess that was the one day that. And who knows if we had waited another day or two, maybe that Monday would have been gone too.
I do know that the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everything after that was snatched up real quick.
It was meant for us, I guess.
Yeah, say that we knew it had to get out there. Yeah. I would agree. I mean, so we'd been traveling almost a week at this point, at least 4 or 5 days, right? Yeah. And it was so far away from everything.
Yeah.
It was one of those, like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of on its own. It's a good, hour and a half, 2 hours
from Des Moines, yeah. So, I mean, it's not the furthest thing away from a major city, but it's definitely not 30 minutes outside of a major city.
Right. I think the closest city to it was still about 20 minutes away, and it was still a pretty small town.
Yeah.
So the distance getting out there, and of course we want to utilize as much time as possible when we go somewhere. So we wanted to get there, you know, early in the morning and be able to start. I think our reservation started like 12 noon, something like that. So we wanted to get there pretty much right when we could to use all of our time.
Yeah.
And that is just when we actually got there. I think, honestly, challenging-wise, I think it actually starts a little before that with getting the right gear for this.
Yeah.
We have not really done many ghost paranormal investigations before.
And then the things that we did were more guided tours with other people.
Exactly.
Like when we did the Birdcage Museum in Arizona, or when we did the Winchester House, they were guided tours with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't, I mean, I guess it's still happening in that situation where, like, oh, paranormal stuff can happen, but you're guided with someone that's hired to do this every day, multiple times a day. They
have a better idea, and they can kind of at least lead it.
Yeah.
Even if we had moments where we're able to go off on our own and kind of do a little exploring, there's still people nearby.
Yeah.
Kind of like a safety net, I guess.
And then also the sense of just there's a bunch of people there. It's like you got 30 people there, and both those things are lit up. They just turn the lights off in certain areas when they want. So it's not the same effect as here where there was no electricity. So
because there, if something starts happening, they hit a switch, lights are on, we can figure it out, call people, whatever.
Yeah.
At this one, it was all us.
Yeah.
And whatever we didn't bring with us, we just wouldn't have.
Yeah. And we had to make our own content in the sense of we couldn't just have a guided, oh, you need to look here, you need to look there. We already knew what was in the house.
Yeah.
And it was very barren in the sense, I mean, there's furniture, but it's not like just, oh, look at all this stuff that you can point and look at, because you'd just be looking at the same wall over and over again.
Yeah, it's like, oh, look at this chair.
You had to,
there it is.
You had to make conversations, make the gear work for you to try to make any kind of content come from it. It wasn't just going to sit there, and it's not like going to a theme park where it's like I can point a camera at a roller coaster while it goes, or be on the roller coaster.
Yeah, it's not spoon-fed to
you. You have to earn it. It's a lot of sitting around in the dark, having conversations, and you're just looking at pitch black.
Like, it was one of our longest episodes ever. It might be the longest. It was almost 2 hours long.
And that's not including all the content.
There's at least 4 or 5 hours of footage we didn't use.
Yeah.
Like, there is a lot in there, I think. But yeah, like you said, you've got to earn a place like this.
Yeah.
We had, we researched for a couple of months up to that with the stories, watching plenty of videos of other people that had gone in there, looking at the experiences, learning more about everything that went into it, so that we didn't just show up as idiots being like, oh, we're here, because that's not entertaining for anybody.
Yeah.
So, doing that, and then I think as we learned at places like the Winchester and the Birdcage, especially the Birdcage with this one, if you don't have some kind of lighting source, it looks bad.
It's dark. It's just blackness.
Yeah.
You can't see anything.
I mean, we had that segment of that was a good 4 or 5 minutes of Birdcage that's just in darkness.
Yeah.
Like, you still hear some stuff, like, it's very interesting, but if you have nothing to visually look at, it just doesn't look as good content-wise. Yeah. So finding a camera that we could use, a way to get that kind of night vision going, I felt was very important.
Yeah.
I mean...
and I think it does help just less people. I think that really just kind of gets you more immersed into the situation you're going.
Absolutely.
Because even something like that, 30 people in that house at night is not going to have the same effect as 2, 3, 4 people.
I agree.
Very, very different.
If we would have had, even if we would have had like 6 or 7, I feel like it would have lost a lot of the spookiness.
Yeah.
It would have just been like, okay, we're all here.
Yeah.
So, going at it alone definitely upped the spook factor for me personally. And I think you kind of touched on this. Even during the daylight, though, when we first got there, we met the caretaker, and he kind of gave us a little bit of a tour, kind of showed us around. But as soon as you walk into the house, it feels different.
Yeah, and that's with you seeing everything. And that's with you having 3 people in there.
Exactly. Like, there's just kind of a weird heaviness, a very just unsettling feeling that is there. Personally, I think from the moment you get there, even when we were outside of the house at the barn where we kind of had stuff set up, I still kind of felt it there at night. Didn't you?
Yeah.
Like,
you could just feel the house looming at you, or something in the windows looming, and that might just be paranoia and just like overthinking a situation. Sometimes the mind can create things, especially when it's quiet or it's dark. Your mind can kind of create things. So, I mean, that probably doesn't help when you already kind of have a story going on with this house.
Right,
so,
you know what's happened there.
Yeah, and plenty of people have, had accounts there of things happening to them, to where it's like it could easily be the human mind kind of amplifying things happening there, but it didn't help the situation, even if that wasn't the case.
Exactly, I agree. I think with any haunted place, there's going to be a level of that.
Yeah.
That you're kind of building it up in your mind if you know what's happened there.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I feel like if there's been so many things that people have felt and had happen, they can't all be in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there is some truth to it. I feel like we got a little bit of stuff there, especially around the doll up in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
That Emily, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. That was very creepy.
And I could already tell from when we were filming that during the daylight that was already going to be unsettling, because it was unsettling during the day looking at that thing.
More than anything else I've ever done with Abnormal Voyages, I did not want to go into that basement at night. I mean, that attic at night.
Oh, yeah. You can feel it. Definitely, because, I mean, you knew what already happened in there. And everyone always said the activities happening most in that room, and you could just feel it as soon as you went in there. Like, the whole time while we're filming, because from how we're looking at it, there's the attic window, and then there's the doll, and then there's David talking to the doll, and then there's me filming everything, but I have my back turned to everything that's happening at that moment. And there's multiple times during that time where you, again, could be easily paranoia of just being in this darkness and knowing what everyone else is accounted for, just feeling of something behind.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a couple times where I felt like I heard something or saw something kind of like in the corner of my eye, and I'd kind of like, while still filming, like look behind me, and you couldn't really tell what was going on because
it was so dark. Yeah,
it was pitch black. There's nothing you could see, but you just kind of had to keep pushing forward and filming.
I definitely felt like we were watched almost the whole time we were there.
Yeah,
like something else, if not multiple things, were definitely present at the time. It was spooky.
And what we've been told, it's like the more antagonizing and like mean you are, the worse it could be. And we were probably the complete opposite of that, because I couldn't imagine if we
hadn't been.
If we had been antagonizing something, what could have been our experience? It could have been even more of that threat,
right?
Because if we felt that way, like something was watching, was it just waiting for something to
just give me a reason?
Give me a reason. Like that was the only thing stopping it, because it was just, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, this is kind of our first time kind of dipping our toes into real doing ghost stuff. We learned a lot, I think, doing this. Yeah. But I don't think we're at the level, because I know when you get too deep into this, sometimes there can be dangers. Yeah. If you believe in, attachments and spirits, like there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So we personally felt like going in there trying to antagonize something to mess with us, probably not the best idea.
No.
I mean, plenty of people can go in there and yell at them, be jerks and stuff. Let them deal with bringing, demons home and stuff. We'll assess the situation. Maybe we'll try it next time. Yeah. But I mean, it's definitely something that's opened up doors where I personally would love to go to more.
Yeah.
And kind of just see where that road takes us.
Yeah.
Maybe even find a couple people that are interested in going with us eventually, having like a team. But like you said, I feel like more than like 3 or 4, that's too many.
Yeah.
I think you keep it small. I think you have the best chances for things to happen.
Yeah.
But something else that happened in Villisca that I wouldn't say was scary. Do you want to tell them about the bar that we stumbled onto?
Oh, yeah. So, us being big sports fans, and it just so happened to be that day that our sports team was playing that night, so we had to go find somewhere where we could watch the game, because, I mean, the internet was already kind of spotty. It was going to be hard to stream
right, we couldn't do it on our phones.
A full game inside of a, house with no electricity in the middle of the night, because it was a night game, so it would just been...
Plus, what if the spirits weren't on the same team?
Yeah. Then again, I mean, it was probably a very different sporting event back then.
They'd be like, what is this?
Yeah, a forward pass? Come on. But, so we found the one sports bar that was open.
The one, like, anything.
Oh, I guess it wasn't a sports bar, but it was like a VA bar.
Yeah, everything else, this is the only thing open in the whole town. It
Yeah.
was a very small town, and everything was very closed.
Yeah, and a lot of these people, they all have lived there their whole life. They grew up there. They've known of the house. One of the people there even was babysitting the house.
That's right. Back before it became a place to rent out, people actually just lived there.
Yeah, just people lived there before they kind of took out the electricity again and kind of made it back to its historical when people died there.
Right.
Went back to that. But we talked to a lot of people that were probably in their 70s, stuff like that.
I would say they ranged from about 50 to about 70, 75.
Yeah, they all knew the house. Some of them didn't really believe anything of it, but they were all very welcoming people and
very friendly people.
So we were able to sit there and watch the game and wait until it was time up. I guess the game probably ended 10:30, something like that.
Right, because we went early in the day. We got our filming done. We did the tour of the daytime.
Yeah.
We did our graveyard segment.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we were waiting for nighttime.
Yeah,
because that's when
and we were doing
happening.
we were doing some dark segments until kickoff anyway. Because I mean, it got dark probably around 6 anyway.
Right, so we had a couple hours.
Yeah, so we were able to do some outside shots, do some of the basement stuff like that before we really deep dive, because we knew once we got in the house, we're basically going to be staying in there and filming throughout the night. So
yeah,
it was one of
because
those.
you go out too much, you're not going to want to go back in.
Yeah. So it was one of those, we got as much as we could get done before the game was over. Because, I mean, even after the game was over, we were in that house for another 7+ hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a long time in that house. And that's not including the daylight shots.
That's true. And something that I thought was really interesting, the one that she had kind of grown up, she was one of the younger ones there. I'd say she was probably like 45, 50. Yeah. She said that they used to, as kids, you know, younger, they would hide in places specifically to scare people that were coming over to see the house and all that. Yeah. And I thought that was really funny. I mean, a little messed up, but pretty funny.
It would have been terrifying if you were in that house, just like something like that happened, and even if it wasn't a ghost, it was just someone doing that. Yeah. You wouldn't be expecting it.
Right, somebody just to jump out of a closet. You'd be, oh my God.
Yeah.
But what I thought was really interesting was, as the night went on a little later, she told us about that kind of early on. More towards the end, when she was one of the only people left there, and she'd had a couple of drinks, I guess, she started to get very serious about it, as opposed to like the joking they had done. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, she was basically that she was legitimately kind of scared of the house.
Oh, yeah.
That they joked around and all this about it, but that was kind of to mask how much fear a lot of people there still have.
She said she'd never been in the house like at night, like in the
right, and then she refused to.
Yeah.
That they will not go into it. That they
and she knew the caretaker, everything like that.
That they leave it there, and he told them stories before that he doesn't share with a lot of people of some very terrifying things that had happened to him, where he almost had to bargain with the spirits himself to be like, hey, I'll bring more people in if you just leave me alone when I'm here. But he's even had times, they said that they've had him come in just shaking, like getting a drink to calm down from what he's seen. That, you know, they'll joke about it, they're very welcoming, they want you to come, but they take it really seriously. They do believe that something is happening there.
Most of the people in town. There's people that...
There are some older people that were like, I mean, but those guys have been in like real wars, and I don't think anything's going to scare them.
Or there's some, I mean, they just don't think of it. They just think of their bubble. I mean, one of the guys even said, never been on a plane.
That's true. Yeah. Never in his life. And he was at least, what, 60s, I would say?
I'd say probably closer to his 70s. And you can tell that it might not change. It's one of those kind of...
Anywhere he ever went, he drove, and that was good enough for him. But overall, I mean, it was just an experience. I highly suggest, you know, if you're ever out anywhere that you get a chance to mingle with the local people there, do it. That's like he was saying about your bubble. You got to get out of that sometimes. You got to meet those people to really feel the flavor of a place, and you know, step out of that tourist shell, and you know, see what the locals are like. Try the food, see the things, talk to the people. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. And I would also say that the major thing is because we were filming in the house all night, there was no sleep.
Absolutely.
So not only had we been already traveling for, you know, days and days, and then we had to film all day because, I mean, the daylight shots, we had to go through different locations just to get it during the house and then the graveyard, and then plan for this. Then we stayed up all night until, you know, sunrise. Then
to be fair, I said you could take a nap in the house if you wanted to.
Yeah, but then
neither of us was up for that.
Plus, then we wouldn't be getting all our filming time.
That's true.
It's like sleep, and then you're wasting your filming time, or get shots throughout the night. It's one of those. You're paying a lot of money to be in this house. You might as well you can sleep anywhere. It's how I view a lot of places.
I had way too much adrenaline. I could not have slept in there.
Yeah, probably not.
I would have been. Yeah.
But by the time it was morning and we finished our shots, we had to start the drive home. It was our last day of filming. So not only no sleep for a whole day, it was now time to drive 12 hours down to... I
think we even picked up one or two more filmings on the way, kind of...
Yeah, but I mean, it was one of those, but it was not we had any rest on the way down, so it was very sleep-deprived day and then day after.
Yeah. So after all the challenging and all the terrifying night of going all through that, it was, all right, now that you haven't slept for almost 48 hours, let's drive.
Yeah.
Of course, we did make it safely.
Yeah.
So that is good.
Ghost.
But
the ghost of the, you know, you never know.
You never know. Huh? But if we're not ghost. I gotta say, it was the most challenging, but I would also say it was the most rewarding.
Yeah.
I think that it is a place that I will always remember.
Yeah.
And definitely a place that I can tell stories about the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That I've been there, I've done that, and how many people are you ever going to know that have spent the night in the Villisca Axe House.
I don't know many people that have been to the state of Iowa, and most people I know are from Iowa,
and they moved away. Right?
Moved away, so they lived there from a technicality of being born there, not because they just sought it out and went to Iowa.
Right. I don't know. I don't think I can name anybody that's been there to visit or like a vacation.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe if you live in the Midwest, maybe it's more common, but at least for us here, I have not run into many. So it's great to say not only I've been there, but I've been to one of the, I would say, true crime capitals of the country. Yeah. Like the story is historic. It's
unsolved
iconic,
murder,
unsolved still to this day, and may have even gotten to talk to some spirits.
Yeah.
So challenging, but I would say worth it.
Yeah.
So kind of recapped 2023 before we fully finish off on that. I at least want to sincerely apologize to everybody for just how crazy this past year was. There definitely wasn't as much out as what we wanted to do. Just, a lot of life things got in the way. As I shared with our Instagram and such, my mother passed away over the summer, and that kind of threw a lot of things into chaos. She was always one of the #1 fans of the channel, so losing her, it was definitely a bit of a blow, but I think that, continuing on and growing things and having more adventures is what she definitely would want. So we'll definitely keep moving forward in that aspect. But wanted to let you guys know that, we're more committed to this than ever. We're getting back on track. This year is going to be one of growth and adventure and awesomeness. We're getting back to the 2 episodes a week, starting with this one that you're watching now. So it is going to be on Wednesdays and Saturdays like we always have been. Got some very exciting things coming up. We have a couple of things we did last year that haven't gotten out yet, so those are coming up soon. I think the first thing coming up, we're going to be finishing off our Disney 100, right? We actually we have every single theme park in this country that we went to, all the Disney parks, all 6, and we only got 2 of them out.
Yeah.
So we got some Disney weeks coming up, and then maybe even an extra Disney episode thrown in there, Walt Disney Museum that we went to. So all of that's coming up. So hopefully you're in a magical mood for the end of this month, because we got that coming. We got some Ripley's, right?
Yeah.
We are going to be finishing up, not finishing up, continuing, because we've got a long way to go. But we definitely have some very cool Ripley's, believe it or not, that we've visited that we want to showcase those. All of our friends over there, we've seen some amazing things, like very cool. And yeah, we just have a really, really good slate of things headed this way. And then, of course, some brand new stuff. As a matter of fact, what would you say your resolution is with the channel for this year? What's something you kind of want to aim for?
Definitely get to some states that I haven't been before.
That's
just kind of like spread out a little bit more. It seems like we're getting more to, there's more states in the West than the East that we haven't been to, for sure. And the pickings are getting kind of more slim on what states we have not been to than what we have been to.
We've been kind of tearing it up.
Yeah.
I think we've officially hit over halfway, haven't we?
At least,
I think we hit the 25, not to say there's not tons still left on the East Coast and some of the South. Like the Carolinas, we haven't even really touched.
Yeah, so we drove through, seen some things, but we haven't done anything in the Carolinas. So there's some states we've been in, but not really done anything to where you can really count them towards, I guess, documentation purposes, actually showing anything.
And there's plenty to see along.
Oh, yeah.
So don't worry, there is tons coming for every state. But I agree. I think going to some new states, some places neither of us has been, that'd be very exciting. And I guess it's kind of opposite of what you're saying. I would love to maybe have like 1 or 2 places that we've been to, and we kind of revisit with like a new angle of something. One in particular, I would love to go back to the Gatlinburg area up in the Smoky Mountains to go see the fireflies. That happens. I think I've mentioned that before. It's kind of the springtime. With COVID, their restrictions were very, very tight on that for a long time. But I think that's started to loosen up. So who knows? Maybe we'll see some old favorites and spice them up with something new.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got a lot of exciting things. Thank you guys for sticking around. As always, if you're interested in supporting us, you can check out our Patreon. We're totally revamping that with some new stuff as well, so check it out if you get a chance. That's going to get you a postcard every single month in the mail from somewhere that we've been. We got a ton of really cool postcards, so let us send them to you, We're going to have some merch later on this year. Kind of showed you the Bigfoot that went with us to the Villisca Axe House, the Sasquatch. We're going to have those in the pipeline coming down, and of course our awesome stickers as always. So look forward to that. And yeah, if you guys have any recommendations of where you want to see us go next, comment below. Let us know. And definitely like and subscribe if you haven't already. Anything else you got to say?
I think you said it perfectly.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, as always. My name is David.
And I'm Blake.
And this has been Abnormal Voyages. Happy New Year. And as always, thanks for tagging along.